wondered, if I were there, what would I have done? If I were there, who would I have been? So that's my question today for you. If you were there,
my sister Martha asked me, Mary, what exactly was that little scene you caused in the middle of dinner? And all I said was, it was just something I could do. Meeting Jesus. I guess I never thought he could be so personable. Someone who can come into our house and have dinner with our family, laugh at our jokes, and even tell a few of his own. Sitting with him made everything else feel less important. That night, right before Passover, we decided to have a dinner to honor Jesus for all he'd done for our family. But looking back at it now, I guess we would have been better off just to let him know that we were united, all on his side. I mean, how do you honor someone who brings a man back to life? My sister Martha was preparing one of her perfect meals, and me? How do I thank Jesus for bringing my brother Lazarus back to life? I decided to give Jesus something so precious to me. But something precious given to Jesus would never be wasted. I let down my hair in public, which is just something a woman never does. And then I got down on my hands and knees, and I cleaned his feet with it. I poured out a whole bottle of my most expensive perfumed oil, and that smell, oh, that beautiful smell, it filled the whole house, and it stayed there for days and days as a reminder. If I had stayed paralyzed in the fear of what my sister said, the anger of the onlookers, or even of what a disciple would say, I would have never worshiped Jesus the way that I did. And it's funny, you know, because at his feet, none of that had even mattered. So why did I do it? It was all I had to give. And just days later, Jesus would be pouring out all he had for us. For me.
We did not steal that donkey. This is how it happened. There was a group of us traveling from Bethany to Jerusalem. We stopped just outside the city, and Jesus looked to us and said, "There's an unridden donkey just inside the village," and he asked us to go get it. We thought to ourselves, what is Jesus going to do with the donkey? We weren't second guessing him. He hadn't told us why, and we weren't going to ask. We brought the donkey back to him, and he said, "Thank you." He then had his followers place their coats on the donkey, and he got on. That's when it happened. He was fulfilling the prophecy. The prophecy had said that one day a man would ride into town on a donkey, and that man would be the Son of God. While he was on the donkey, all of his followers started praising him. They were cheerful, they were joyful. Everyone was just amazed. Others were using palm branches and fanning him as if he were the king. Jesus had finally arrived. That may sound weird, but in the past, when Jesus did something amazing, everyone would be all joyful and just praise him. They were just amazed. But he would always go, "No, no, no, no. Now is not the time." But today was different. Today, he finally let us treat him as if he were the Messiah we had all been waiting for.
I serve Caesar. He is the king, not this donkey-riding man named Jesus. I take no joy in his crucifixion, but Jesus had to die. Jesus was a serious problem. He was stirring up the masses and proclaiming that he was the true king of the Jews. Some of the Jews were actually believing him, and some were actually worshiping him, and that could not be tolerated. I have spent a lifetime to get where I am at, and this so-called Messiah was not going to ruin it for all of us. And these stories of miracles, show me the proof. An educated man does not fall for such foolish stories. There were riots in the city of Jerusalem because of him. And something had to be done in order to restore the peace. I take no joy in this crucifixion, but Jesus had to go.
Jesus was coming, and he asked a lot of the women that followed him to travel to Jerusalem to prepare for one meal in particular, the last Passover. I was honored to be one of the women asked to prepare for this special meal. We knew that this meal would be different because we were asked to find a place that was nicely furnished, bring our nicest cloths, place settings, most beautiful smelling oils, and our nicest candles. Someone asked Jesus where this meal would take place, and he explained that one of the women had generously offered up a large upper room in her home in the city that was already beautifully furnished, and many of the women had been busy preparing for this special meal. When Martha was in preparing for this meal, her sisters were assisting her. They were setting up the tables, arranging the cloths, place settings, and doing whatever else they could to make sure this meal was perfect. When Jesus finally arrived, we were honored and excited to be set among him and with friends and family. We soon understood why this last Passover meal was so important.
It was a different kind of Passover meal, to say the least. Right as I sat down, Philip leaned over to Thomas and I, and he said, "I feel like something special is going to happen tonight." Thomas looked at him and he said, "I doubt it." Just then, Jesus stood up, grabbed a basin of water and a towel. Thomas leaned over to me again and said, "My daddy's going to wash his feet, is he?" He was wrong. Jesus knelt down and began to wash Bartholomew's feet. Bart just looked at him, didn't say anything, didn't move. None of us did. I remember thinking, this is so strange, yet so wonderful. Then Thomas leaned over to me again and he said, "I doubt anybody's going to break the silence from me." But of course, you know who had to say something? Peter.
No way are you washing my feet. That's what I told him. He can wash anyone else's feet, but he was not going to wash mine. So I turned and I said, "Jesus, you're not going to wash my feet. You're the king." He smiled and said, "Okay, you can have nothing to do with me then." I'm like, ouch. Okay, wash my feet, wash my hands, wash my whole body. Yeah. He just laughed and said, "No, Peter, your feet will be just fine." In the midst of washing our feet, he taught us serving.
Then Jesus took some bread, some wine, blessed it and served it to us. He then told us, "Tonight, all of you will lose faith in me." I remember thinking, lose faith in you? Never. But I didn't say anything. I just sat. But you know who had to say something again.
I couldn't just sit there. I had to say something. So I told Jesus, "Jesus, I love you. You can count on me." He says, "Peter, you'll deny me 3 times before tomorrow morning." I'm like, ouch. Next thing I knew, we wrapped things up, heading to the garden to pray.
Once we got to the garden, Jesus asked James, Andrew, and myself to go a little further in and pray with him. And we did. Well, we tried. We kept falling asleep. One time Jesus woke us up and he told us, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Felt bad. Then it just got crazy. Did Judas really think what he was doing was right? He betrayed Jesus with a kiss, the kiss of a friend. It just got wild. Peter grabbed a sword and cut a guard's ear off, and he tried to take Jesus. But then Jesus picked up this guy's ear and he touched him, and he put it back as if nothing had ever happened. Then they took him. I wish I could tell you we fought for him. I wish I could tell you we saved him. But we didn't. We ran. I ran. I'm so ashamed.
I was definitely worried, but I was also pretty confused. I serve an unapproachable God. Well, I actually serve Caiaphas, who served an unapproachable God. And the weeks leading up to all of this, all Caiaphas talked about was this Jesus Christ guy. How he fed thousands of people with just a loaf of bread and some fish. It was unbelievable, you know. I couldn't believe it until that night. That's what I refer to it now as that night. Judas led us into the garden, and we all met Jesus. He seemed like he was the only one awake that night. I was right there next to them. I heard Judas lay the kiss on his cheek. I heard Jesus call him friend. That was the last thing I heard for a while. There was a flash of white and warm blood down the side of my face. I got really dizzy. My ear was on the ground. And then Jesus touched me. I had heard of his touch before, how he used dirt and spit to make the blind see. And his touch helped, but it was in his eyes. In his eyes, I saw compassion, grief, and joy, all at the same time, as if his eyes were telling me, friend. He removed his hand and just as new. After they led Jesus away and they took him to the council, they just started laying down all these crimes on him, and he just looked surrendered, like he was sad for all of us. Nobody could deny what was happening. They took him to Pilate, and then the crucifixion happened. They put him up on that cross. Something set in. The sun went out like someone took it out of the sky. There was an earthquake that rattled you to your core. I was there in the temple when the veil ripped in half on its own, with an ear-splitting crack. Even through that, I heard Jesus tell me, friend. Now, even I knew what this means. This unapproachable God who was a million miles away from us, in some far-off distant galaxy, away from everyone, was right next to us. Our prayers have been answered. God was on the move.
I didn't know. I didn't know they were going to kill him. I mean, when Caiaphas gave me those 30 pieces of silver, and I planted that kiss on Jesus' cheek, I thought they were just going to arrest him. But in the garden, they beat him. And days later, they put him on that cross. And he took it. He didn't fight back. I guess I had the wrong image of Jesus the whole time. When we first met Jesus, we thought this king with the army at his back, but while these kings were riding in on chariots led by these beautiful horses, Jesus rode in on a donkey. What kind of king does that? So I set those thoughts aside. I started thinking, hey, sure, Jesus could be the king. We could help the king in some way. I've seen this guy perform miracles. But that wasn't Jesus. I mean, Jesus was a peacekeeper. He helped the sick and the poor. He didn't fight people. So I went to Caiaphas. He was scared that some king would take his position, and I knew that king personally.
I don't know why I did it. I would say I did it for the money, but I didn't even keep the money. I threw it back at him. I don't know why I did it.
Oh, bravo. That was truly a spectacular performance. You know, for a second, I almost thought you were sorry. Well, let's be honest with ourselves. We both knew Caiaphas was going to kill him. I mean, honestly, Judas, are you that naive to think that he was just going to take Jesus away and make him some kind of a king? And for 30 pieces of silver, no less, you are by far my cheapest failure. Because I appeared to him too. Except for when I appeared to him, I offered him everything. Money, power, land, anything he could ever desire. But he turned me down. But you, you picked up what I left behind. I offered Jesus everything, this whole world. But instead, you settled for 30 pieces of silver. You know, Judas, you are a very sad, pathetic man. And I was a fool to expect anything worthwhile to come from you.
My husband has to make important decisions every day, but he is not always right. And he was wrong about Jesus. I'm still not sure what Jesus did. All these people came in claiming he said he was the king of the Jews, but when my husband asked him about it, all he said was, "You say that I am." What kind of answer is that? What kind of innocent man doesn't stand up for himself? And the Jewish high priests, I'm fairly sure they were paying people off to chant, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" They wanted Barabbas freed instead of Jesus. They wanted a murderer walking around with them in the streets instead of this, as far as I could tell, innocent man. I think what hurt the most was that my husband did not listen to me when I told him not to let the Jews get away with this. I mean, I understand where he's coming from. He has to please Caesar. He has to keep the peace, or we could die. But will my family truly feel peace again after today? I had this dream last night. It was unlike any other dream I've had before. In this dream, my husband put to death an innocent man, and my family suffered greatly because of it. Now, I normally don't believe in dreams, but this was different. This was too real to me. I told my husband about it at the trial. I begged him to let Jesus go, and for a moment he listened. But in the end, he succumbed to the crowd's begging and put Jesus to death. I will regret this decision for the rest of my life.
He's just a man. He's a simple man. It's Jesus. Yet, why do I feel so weak when I look into his eyes? Does he not know this life is in my hands? I make the final decision. Yet, there's something so unsettling. He's not defending himself. The man's innocent. But these people, they're bloodthirsty, they're angry, they have no regard for his life. But why? Do they seek some sort of revenge on him? I've tried everything. I've offered them Barabbas, this murderer, this killer, criminal. But when he's up there on the cross with Jesus, they look right past him to Jesus with this evil intent in their eyes that he must be crucified. But with no reason. I have no other choice. My own wife even warned me. She told me that Jesus was innocent. But I didn't listen. I don't have another choice. If these people want a crucifixion, they can crucify him. If they want Barabbas, let them have the criminal in the streets with them. Let his blood be shed on all of these people.
I am not what you consider a nice person. I'm the man that people knew to fear and the guards knew to keep an eye on. I've been arrested so many times for murder, for theft, for causing riots, I lost count. And every time I went to jail, I could always find a way out. I could always find a way out. This time my luck ran out. All I could do is think. But the strange thing is, this time all I could think about was my sin. All the bad things I've ever done in my life, they were bearing down on me. That's whenever the guard came for me. He pulled me out of my cell, brought me before Pilate, the crowd. I was so confused. I didn't know what was going on. They put me next to this man, this bloody, beaten up person. It took me a minute to even recognize it was human. And that's whenever Pilate said it. I have the power to release one of these two men, and I will leave it to you, the crowd, to determine who it was. Will you choose Barabbas or Jesus? Jesus. He was a teacher, a healer, a miracle worker. I'm no fool. He was a good man. They were going to choose him over me. All I have to do is wait. Wait for their decision and wait for death. And then they started chanting, Barabbas, Barabbas, Barabbas.
No! That is not what is supposed to happen. They're supposed to chant his name, not mine. He's supposed to go free, not me.
I looked at him. We made eye contact. Something happened between us. I don't know what it was. I can't explain it, but something happened. I had to follow him. I had to go to Golgotha.
I heard the insults. I felt the spit. I felt it as if everything was happening to me.
Never reached the mountain. I saw them drive those stakes into him. Whenever they lifted them, I could see the desperation with every gasp of breath. It should be me on that cross. I should be dying, not him. Tell me, is there any good reason why he should be up there instead of me? There's none. There's no good reason why I should be living. He was a good man, and he's dying.
But I mean, I should be happy, right? I'm free. I can do whatever I want. I can go wherever I want to go. I should be excited, right? Then why would I feel this guilt? Jesus was a good man. He was a teacher. He taught things like kindness, compassion, service. Maybe there's something to these teachings after all. Maybe. Maybe it's time to live a better life.
This was my year. You know, they say you're supposed to make the pilgrimage to Jerusalem for the Passover celebration at least once in your life. And at the end of every Passover we pray, and next year in Jerusalem. Well, it was next year. So I packed up all my stuff, and I headed out from Cyrene. You know, I've heard a lot of stories about the city, how amazing it is, the people, the food, how great the festival is. But when I got there, it was nothing like I expected. Sure, the city was still a sight to behold, the buildings and whatnot. But the people were just angry. They were riled up in these mobs, moving around in the city, and they settled on the main street. It goes all the way through Jerusalem. Somehow I pushed my way to the front of the crowd, and I looked down, a couple hundred yards off. There was a guy with a cross on his back. I use that term lightly. He was practically unrecognizable as a man, covered in blood. It was disgusting. He got to right in front of me and he fell under the weight of the cross. And this Roman centurion, he grabbed me by the chest, he pulled me out into the street, and he said, "Help him!" Are you out of your mind? I can't help this guy. I just walked 1,500 miles to be here. And he wants me to ruin it. Throw it all away. Get blood on my hands and get dirty so I can't participate in the Passover celebration. I can't help him. And then I made eye contact. I was convinced a few minutes ago that this guy could not be more guilty. Obviously, he was a criminal. Why else would he be treated like this? But as soon as I looked in his eyes, I knew he was innocent. But he wasn't acting like an innocent man. Innocent men fight their convictions. Innocent men tell people that they did nothing wrong, but he was just surrendering. Like he knew that
this was gonna happen. Or that it needed to, I guess.
So I picked up the back of the cross. To be honest with you, I really wasn't holding much of the weight. He was doing most of the work. And we walked to go back. They laid him out and nailed his hands and his feet. I couldn't watch that. I just remember looking down at my hands. My hands were covered in this blood that I thought was going to make me unclean. But it was the blood that washed me. That day, I helped Jesus carry my cross and yours.
All I wanted was to go home. You see, my husband's job brought us here to Jerusalem. We left our home with the most luxurious banquets, beds, servants. We had it all. And we left it all behind for this miserable future. And for a really long time, the only thing I was focused on was going home to see our friends and family again. That is, until Jesus rode into the city. See, the whole week I had heard rumors of this Messiah, this King of the Jews. But all I saw was this poor man riding into the city on an old donkey. What kind of king was that? But what surprised me the most was how the city had changed in just a week. From crowds gathering together, singing and dancing, waving palm leaves up in the air, praising him, they turned to riots and chaos, and people screaming, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" It was terrifying. And I knew that my husband would be the one to kill him, the one to execute him. So out of curiosity, the day of his crucifixion, I left the house to go see what this Jesus man was. Arriving on the scene, I saw a group of women standing at a distance, all holding one another and weeping uncontrollably. And then I saw Jesus, just hanging there on the cross, accepting what was happening to him, not cursing at my husband, not begging for his life. He was praying to his Father, to his God, asking for forgiveness for my husband who was killing him. When I returned home, I found my husband. And I could see in his eyes, he couldn't justify his job anymore. He wasn't killing criminals anymore. He killed an innocent man. I could see in his face he had lost his purpose. And I'm terrified because for the first time in our lives, we don't have a plan anymore.
Look, I'm not a killer. I'm an executioner. So believe me when I say the people I dealt with deserve to be where they are now. My job is simple, but I won't bore you with the specifics. I crucify people, given to me on a daily basis. And they're not innocent people, war criminals, rioters, street thugs. They put themselves on that cross. I know I'm doing good work. And hey, it pays well, and if I do it long enough, I've got a shot at promotion. So, good work, good pay. My wife and I had plans for the future. But then he came to me, riding a donkey. Jesus Christ of Nazareth, the Messiah, the King of the Jews, the third prisoner I had scheduled for that day. I thought he was going to be a rambling lunatic. But rambling lunatics don't have an entire town up in arms against them. Everybody had been calling for his blood the entire week. It was unusual. But I had a job to do, so I just tuned them down, finished the death march, and got to it. Crucifixion is extensive. It takes 4 of us just to get the guy nailed onto the cross. 3 to bar down the arms and the legs, and me to strike in the nails. I start with the hands first, before the legs.
helps keep them steady. It gets messy, but since we don't have to clean it up for obvious reasons, all we have to do is worry about getting it up right, and then we're done. I expected the usual screams, begging, crying, but nothing. Just surrender on his face. I looked into his eyes, and all there was peace. Crucifixion is not a peaceful process. Having your hands and your feet nailed is not a peaceful process. Guilty men don't stay silent. It got my attention, yeah, but I had a job to finish. Couldn't keep the crowd waiting, you know? So we got the cross lined up, and then we were done. Another crucifixion successfully executed. Since we'd finished for the day, some of the soldiers decided to head home, others went to join the crowd. I, meanwhile, had won the daily loss for the day, so I got to take home his cloak. I even had it rolling around in my hands. I played with the stains. And that's when he yelled. No. That's when he proclaimed, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Are you serious? We know exactly what we're doing. As soldiers, our job is to keep the peace. We do the good work. You, meanwhile, you're just making a mess of everything. You made a fool of the high priest and all his followers with your little magic tricks. Do you think that helps anybody? Look, just because you can act innocent. No, you aren't innocent. You're guilty. All of you on that hill have to be guilty. I'm the innocent one. All I've done is kill people. I mean, all I've done is execute prisoners. No. All I do is kill people. And all it took for me to see that was putting an innocent man on the cross. I didn't stick around when they stuck the sword in his side. The crosses were becoming a little heavy to bear. I just headed home and waited for my wife. And when she came an hour later, she had the same look on her face. I went first. Something happened today, and I don't think I can crucify people anymore. I know how bad that is. Believe me, I know how much trouble we're going to get in, but I just put an innocent man to death. And if I keep doing my job, I'm just going to see his face on every cross I finish. I can't do the job, but I don't know what to do. I just know I can't go back.
The angel looked at me and said, "Nothing is impossible with God." And I've held on to that truth all of my life. But my son was not mine to keep. One day, Jesus left our home. He said that he had other work to do, that it was time for him to go off and to preach the good news that the kingdom of God was at hand. And deep down, I knew that this was his plan all along. But that did not stop me from missing my son. I was in agony when I heard that he had been condemned to die. How could God allow my child to be taken from me, to be crucified? It just couldn't be. I saw my son on that cross. I saw the welts on his back. I heard him gasp for breath.
And even in his deepest pain, my son looked at me with love. And I knew that I would see him again.
I was walking to Golgotha the other day to see what all the fuss was about. I then found myself following this group of people to see the execution. You know, I didn't want to see people get killed. I was just curious to see where everybody was going. When I got there, I saw a man on the cross. And on the cross said, I-N-R-I, King of the Jews. I asked around to see what crime this man had committed, but all I heard were tales of his heroism and miracles. I then got really angry that we would condemn such a holy man to death. I found myself wandering closer to the cross. And when I got closer to the cross, I heard what was going on between the three men on the crosses. The man on the right was jeering at Jesus, mocking him, telling him, if you're the King of the Jews, then save yourself. The man on the left was repentant and asked for Jesus' forgiveness. What I heard next, I'll never forget. Jesus told the man on the left, today, you will be with me in paradise. I'll never forget that. Because of what Jesus said, I knew that if that criminal on his left could get into heaven, I could get into heaven too.
There were people there. Some of them didn't know much more than his name. For us, the people who'd been following him, we were literally surrounded by strangers. And I would be lying to you if I told you that we were terrified out of our minds. But for me, I knew that we weren't alone, because he was there. You see, Jesus is the kind of person who just walks up to you and suddenly you're talking to him. And less than a second later, you feel like you've known him your whole life, and he's known you way longer than that. He came up to me. I met him during kind of a difficult part. I'm a widow. My son got sick and he died. And as they were leading his coffin out of the city, Jesus showed up. And he looked at me and he said, "Don't weep." And okay, so if you don't think it's crazy that he talked to me, a woman and a widow, you're just not gonna believe what happened next. He gave my son back to me. He rose him from the grave. He gave me security, stability, my family back. He gave me my family back. And it wasn't the last time I saw something like that. I saw it that day. John and Mary were there, of course. You know Mary, she's Jesus' mom. She's a widow like me. Jesus, in all his pain, he looked at her and he said, "Woman, behold, this is your son." And for me, I was wondering what that meant, because was he saying, "Look at me, Mom, I'm dying"? Like that's not in character for him. But then he looked at John and he said, "Behold, this is your mother." And then it clicked. saying, he was introducing them. He was making a family that wasn't based on blood, it was based on faith. He created a faith family. I got to be a part of it too. See, Jesus was always taking broken things, fragments, and he put them back together. He put them back together and he made them better than they were before. So we have this thing now, and those strangers out there that I was so afraid of don't have to be strangers anymore.
The first time I met Jesus was in secret at night. The other council members could never know I was there. As I approached, I heard them say, "Nicodemus, he's here." My place as a Pharisee came off as a threat, of course. The council saw Jesus as an enemy, and I was part of the council. I didn't come as an enemy, I came as a friend. So I approached Jesus and I told him, "Rabbi, I know you are a teacher who has come from God." And he looked at me and he smiled. And he told me, "To enter the kingdom of God, you must be born again." Now, I've heard of the miracles Jesus has performed, but I am an elder man. How is it that I am to be born again? So I asked him, "How am I to be born again? Am I supposed to enter my mother's womb and wait to be born?" I was a little angry. I risked everything that night coming to Jesus, and he was trying to tell me that to enter the kingdom of God, I must be born again. But what he told me next made everything a little more clear. He said, "Flesh gives birth to flesh, but spirit gives birth to spirit. You must be born again. The wind blows wherever it pleases. We know not where it comes from or where it goes. Just as is with the spirit. You must be born again." I left that night enlightened. I thought I was risking everything coming to see Jesus, but I realized the only risk would have been not going. A while later, I was still on the council. We heard news that Jesus was captured, and everyone started cheering, shouting for his crucifixion, his death. He was an innocent man. I stood up and I tried to plead for him. I said, "We cannot try an innocent man. We cannot kill an innocent man." But they didn't listen. The whole reason had been thrown aside. Next thing I knew, I was standing at the cross, looking at him. I helped take down his body and prepare him for burial. When I looked upon his face, I did not see the face of a criminal. I saw a leader, a healer, a good man. Surely he was sent from God.
I don't know how. What would be the word for terrified and excited? All I know is we were both of those things that morning. My sons and I, James and John, we had all left my husband Zebedee to follow Jesus, to be his disciples. And when Jesus died, it was all over. I mean, were we wrong about him? We must have been. Jesus just died, like any one of us. So we hid. We hid in fear. Then, on Sunday morning, a small group of us women went to go prepare his body with spices and ointments. It was the very least we could do, even if none of it made any sense. For 3 days, which were the longest 3 days of my life, we were afraid. But Sunday, I was running as fast as I could, but my mind was moving quicker than my feet could. The other disciples wouldn't believe us when we tried to tell them. A massive tombstone moved. The Roman guards silenced. Blinding angels. Unnecessary grave clothes now neatly folded as if they had a secret to tell.
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then an empty tombstone holds 1,000 promises. For years, we had it all wrong. I mean, we were waiting for the Messiah, this warrior king, to come and overthrow the Romans and restore Israel. But Jesus exceeded all expectations. We were hoping too small. Because, do you see what this means? It means whatever has been taken from us, God can restore. The secret's out now. He's not dead. He's not missing. He's not been taken from us. He lives. So we can live too. I don't have all the answers. But if there's a way to be had, it's through him. If there's hope in this world, then his name is Jesus the Christ, the Messiah, our Messiah, my Messiah. We thought it was the end, but it was only the beginning.
Cleopas.
Yes?
I can't believe they think Jesus is alive again. I mean, I was there. I saw him on the cross. I watched the Roman soldier pull out his spear and stab Jesus. I watched the blood pour out of Jesus' wounds. I heard him cry out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Yet John and Peter still think he's resurrected today.
They're desperate. Those men, they gave their lives to follow Jesus. They believed everything that he said and everything that he did. And how were they rewarded? With failure.
You're right.
You know, I still remember that night on the road to Emmaus back home, when that stranger came up to us and asked us why we were so sad.
Yeah, I didn't know how he didn't know why.
I mean, Jesus of Nazareth, the prophet, the one who was great and mighty, the one who fulfilled the prophecies, who cured the blind and brought the dead back to life, was condemned to death, crucified on the cross by the high priest, by Pontius Pilate, and by his own followers, his own believers. I still can't believe that we put our faith in him, that we thought he was going to be the one to save Israel.
I remember the man asking how we were going to find the truth about God. And his answer was simple. We're going to find the truth about God only as we learn about Jesus Christ. And then you remember we thought he was quoting Jesus when he said something like, he that hath seen me hath seen the Father. And we would only truly know about God only as we open the scriptures.
Yeah, and we had thought that maybe he was a follower that we just didn't recognize, or someone that we didn't know.
You know, he probably was believing the same thing John and Peter did.
Yeah, you're right. I still didn't believe.
I came to believe. I called an old friend who had always been in trouble, but this time, she was okay.
I knew Jesus was with us when I reunited with my faith family on Wednesday.
I felt Jesus with us when the church was packed at our confirmation 2 weeks ago.
I felt the love of Jesus through my own mother. Thanks, Mom.
I was reminded when the smog cleared and I could see the mountains. It was my touchstone.
I saw Jesus helping others at a food distribution.
I saw Jesus and all these people around me who let me to their faith family, even when my faith was the lowest.
I see Jesus every time we break bread together.
I see Jesus in the lens of my camera.
Jesus is there. He's there. He's all around us. He's in the family members that we love. He's in the friends that we cherish. He's in the strangers that surround us every day. The ones we communicate with and the ones we just let be. But Jesus died on the cross for us. It was grace. He died on the cross for everything that we believe in, for everything that we stand for. And he did it not out of selfishness, but because he loved us. And And it's up to us now to go out and serve others, to go out and find Jesus, because he is there, and he will always be there.
First off, we'd like to thank you all for coming. We really appreciate the support. We have a couple of people who would like to call to the stage who are just as large a part of making this happen as any of us were. So Kim Meyer and Dave and Kim Hudson and Mary and
Christina, and if we could get Skip and Paula up here.
most help us make it so.
Call back and you can see why I like my work. They speak for themselves, and they've discovered Jesus, and they've discovered a faith family, and they discovered that we need to help each other. And so this is our gift to you for Easter, and let's keep it going. Yeah.